Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? We're just going to give it a minute or so just to see if any other people who have registered join in. So we'll just give this a minute or two, and then we can get started on our AI and Copilot workshop. Good afternoon, Jeremy. How are we doing?
Hi, John. How are you getting on?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good.
We'll just give it a minute or two for others to join, but I think we're nearly at most of which who have registered are already in.
All right, cool. Well, look, just while we're waiting for a few people to join, if I can briefly introduce myself, Jeremy Bryan from JTec and Business Development here. And we are, so pleased to be able to provide the AI seminar, a webinar today. We are basically an IT support organization that provide IT support across the UK and Ireland, and we've been doing so for about 30 years. So I see a lot of familiar names up here, but if any of you don't know us, we're awesome. Please get in contact, and we'll see how we can help you down the line. We've been going through our own digital transformation process recently. We're trying to automate a lot of our admin processes, and John has been amazing at doing that. He's really helped us understand how we can do that, what the tools are out there to do it. And the other thing that we found useful is the funding that's available. There's funding across lots of regions in the UK, particularly in Northern Ireland. There's something called the Digital Transformation Flexible Fund. And if you haven't already had a look at that, it's between £5,000 and £20,000 that you can get to, transform your business. Ultimately, there are guys there with Go Succeed, I think it is, who do a wraparound support for your application, and they will teach you how to put the application in, give you ideas on how to use AI within your business, further to what John's going to do today. So you'll have the knowledge, and you'll have ultimately the money that gives you the time to put the effort into it as well. So do look at that. I'll share the contact details for the DTFF, and you can register your interest. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank John for giving up his time for us today. John works for Micro Warehouse, and we partner with those guys, and we've been with them for many years. So thanks so much, John, for doing this for us.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Jeremy. Thank you. So we'll get started, and this is basically an enablement workshop. Okay, discussing how you can use AI within the workplace and help improve productivity, help enhance the kind of output of your work itself, save you time. Over the course of the workshop, we're going to have a little look at Copilot for 365 specifically, and we'll talk very briefly just about how that differentiates from Copilot Chat, the other iterations of Copilot, of course, ChatGPT or Gemini, and why Copilot for 365 is a better offering. We're going to look at the adoption rate of Copilot and AI in general, because it's very, very interesting just to see how quickly AI is actually being adopted into the workplace. I will just go through what Copilot Chat is, which essentially is a free version of Copilot that you can introduce your workforce to straight away. And then we'll talk about how you can find success within AI adoption, how you avoid failure, and some of the pitfalls that many companies can fall into. I'm going to show you 1 minute and 30-second video, right? One of the few videos from Microsoft that I actually think are really well done. And this 1 minute and 30-second video is actually really informative just on how Copilot treats security within a 365 environment. And then we'll kind of get to the crux of what this workshop is, right? We're going to do a live demo of how Copilot for 365 works across the 365 applications, the environment itself, also Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams. And we will touch on Copilot Studio and agents and how you can build agents to improve workflows or just help in day-to-day tasks. So that'll be also very interesting. And then we can have a little brief look at the advice we give for when you're looking to roll out AI across your workforce and the best ways you can do that in order to get the best return on investment. Now, at the end, there will be a Q&A. There's also a Q&A section just above in this team's webinar. And the chat window is there as well, right? So if you've got any questions at all, feel free to just put them in the chat or the Q&A section. We'll touch on them at the end, and we'll also open it up where you can turn on your microphones and just ask any questions you want, and we'll answer, of course, any we can, and then any we can't, we'll take away and get you answers for them. So we mentioned here that the age of co-pilots has arrived, okay? And what does that mean? Well, Microsoft are really, really good at many a thing. What they're not good at is naming things, right? And branding. So in their innate wisdom, they just went ahead and called everything AI related Copilot, right? With them, you've got Copilot Studio, Copilot for sales, Copilot for dynamics, for security, for finance, Copilot Chat, which we'll discuss in a moment. So beyond these other iterations, what we're going to be focusing on within this particular webinar is Copilot for 365, okay? And where that differentiates itself from the others is that this is specifically the Copilot that lives within your 365 environment and works across and is embedded within your 365 Office applications, right? So your Excel, your Teams, your Word, your PowerPoint, your Outlook. When you turn them on and you have Copilot, you will see an option for Copilot within those applications themselves that you can utilize for infinite amount of tasks, some of which we'll go through within the demo. And this, of course, is exactly where it differentiates itself from other AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, right? A lot of people, they'll always say, oh, well, I use ChatGPT and I like how that works or whatever it may be. And in your free time, that might be fine, right? But if you're using a free ChatGPT tool, you never want to be uploading any data from your working environment or any customer related data outside and taking it outside of your 365 environment, which is a secure environment, and then just putting it into a web application, right? You don't want to do that because you're asking for a security breach, okay? And you're asking for a breach of GDPR regulations. So you want to be able to make sure that you can use AI within your working environment as well and as safely as possible, right? So unlike ChatGPT, unlike Gemini, where these are web-based tools, the Copilot lives within your 365 environment and it lives and is embedded within the applications themselves. And that's where its main differential is from those other solutions, but also from all the other things you see named Copilot. Now we look at the adoption and the rate on which Copilot is being adopted, right? We can see here just briefly, right? Technologies you're all well aware of, right? Mobile phones, the internet, Facebook, okay? Everybody knows what these are. But surprisingly, this is how long it took them to reach 100 million users, right? Now, 16 years for mobile, 7 years for the internet, and even Facebook, social media platform, took 4.5 years. Now, when you look at where these technologies are today, right, there's probably not a single person above the age of 12 in the Western Hemisphere that doesn't have a mobile phone or the internet. And, Facebook's over 1 billion users at this point, right? But that's how long it took them to reach 100 million. And then ChatGPT and OpenAI Source, it did it in 3 months. So that to me is unbelievable with regards to adoption. And we're seeing it every day, not just in the workforce, but also in college, right? In school. Even I myself, I did an AI course in UCD recently. I did a diploma. It was every Wednesday. It was for about 3 hours in the morning. And I was utilizing my Copilot when doing that course, right? What I would do is I just turn on a Word document and then basically dictate the entire lesson, right? As the lecturer spoke, as I spoke, as all the other students spoke back and forth, it was all being dictated into a Word document, right? Now, that Word document ended up being, for every lesson, it was like 37 odd thousand words and 30 odd pages, right? And kind of completely useless in and of itself, right? Because it's just too big with too much nonsense information. But with the power of AI, I could always go back to that document and ask it, what were the key discussion points within this class? What was the key takeaways from this class? What real world examples were in this class? And give me a paragraph about them, right? So even though I attended those classes and I had participated in them, I'm able to use AI weeks later when I'm doing a report or a continuous assessment. I'm able to use AI to get any information and insights from that document about the class, right? And that is hugely powerful, right? And this is all by the way of saying that anybody in college now is going to be using AI. They're going to use it to get their diplomas, their degrees, their masters. And when they enter the workforce, they're going to be expecting to use these tools. And that's what's really important, right? One of the hardest things at the moment is talent acquisition, right? Hiring people that are qualified, and talent retention, right? Keeping them there. And if you have people leaving college and entering the workforce, and you don't have AI tools that they've at that point, been using fairly frequently, then you're going to struggle in acquiring that talent, right? It'd be like giving somebody a fax machine and then asking them to compete with someone who has an email. Okay, it's simply not going to work well, right? So it's really, really good that you're in this webinar today because it allows you to kind of see the power of AI and how it can help kind of transform the workforce and how you could use it yourselves, right? Because as you can see here from this statistic, about 87% of organizations believe it would give them a competitive advantage. This is, by the way, 100% true, right? The 13% here are probably not going to be in business for very long if they don't think it would give you a competitive advantage. But I think this is somewhat dated now. Okay, I think in 6 months to a year from now, AI won't give you a competitive advantage. Simply not having it and not utilizing it properly will put you at a disadvantage to everybody else. Just looking at the sheer adoption rates that are there, right? So again, very, very good that you are in the webinar and taking a look at this for yourselves, and then over time, hopefully implementing it across your own workforce to your benefit. Now, we mentioned Copilot Chat. This was the free version, right? I've got all my imagery here created using Copilot Chat. Sorry, it's created using Copilot, and I try to keep things little bit light. And as you can see, Copilot Chat is like the armbands here with our AI robot, right? It's like when you're about to dip your toe into the pool of AI and you have your little armbands on. That's what Copilot Chat is, right? It's a web-based tool, much like ChatGPT or Gemini, that you can ask questions of it. You can put in prompts and you can get information back, and that's really useful. And this is completely free. It lives within the Edge browser, and you can roll this out to your all your employees right now. And this will allow them to get used to a secure version of AI. It'll also get them used to the new skill or art of actually creating and crafting a good prompt in order to get the best out of the AI solution. So again, this is something you can roll out straight away. It's very easy to use. But then, of course, when you're ready to kind of graduate and move into the paid version of Copilot that's really going to transform the business, you can do that, and your staff, your employees, won't be completely unfamiliar with what's required. Okay, so when you're ready to do that, we look at how can you achieve success implementing AI, right? How do you avoid failure? And really, the answer for this is quite obvious and simple, right? We've seen organizations implement AI in completely the wrong way, right? They incorporate it into the business. They think it's going to completely transform everything from day one, right? They're basically looking at it to move the earth, moon, and the stars. Like they're going to just click a button, turn on a Star Wars um, um, film or marathon, and sit there, and AI is just going to do their job for them from start to finish, right? Ultimately leading to failure, right? If you try and get it to do something too complex on day one, it will just fail. And what happens then is it fails. You lose confidence within the solution. It's not doing what you thought it would. Your expectations are probably astronomical and too high to begin with. And you lose confidence in the solution, right? You throw it in the bin, you stop using it, and you go back to your normal day-to-day tasks, what you used to do. Now, how do you avoid that? Well, quite simply, you start simple, right? You look at simple ways in which AI can help you do some of your day-to-day tasks a little bit faster. How it can help you do them a little bit quicker, a little bit better, saving you time in some areas and improving the quality of your output in other areas. And then when you start to get those wins, those good use cases, It'll end up helping you build confidence in the solution. Now it's meeting your expectations, right? It's outdoing your expectations. And of course, the more you build confidence in the solution, then the more complex you can start to become with it, right? Because the levels of complexity that you can reach with this are boundless, but you do need to get there in a kind of a tempered kind of journey way, right? You don't want to just try and do ridiculously complex things from day one. You need to work towards that, like anything. Now, in order to do that and prepare for AI, the one thing we would ask of you is that as an organization, right, as a company, ask these 4 questions of yourselves, right? What are your organization's goals for using AI? Now, this is not just simply a question that you can sit there and answer now yourself. You need to talk to all of the employees within your organization. You need to talk not just with the heads of departments, but the people in the department doing the day-to-day work. Right? Because the question really isn't what is your organization's goals for using AI? It's what are your department's goals for using AI? And then what are your individualistic goals as a single employee within the organizations for using AI? Because you need to drill down to that level of detail. And then when you get an understanding of those goals, you can then also ask the organization, the departments, the individuals within those departments, what are your pain points that AI can actually address? And again, this is all very, very, very obvious things, but I've seen organizations not know what to do with AI or how to use it. And I've sat down with them for half an hour. I'd have everybody in the organization write down 5 things they would like to try and achieve or do in their day-to-day on an Excel file. And just the sheer process of putting it down on paper, digital paper, they were able to start kind of looking at their day-to-day properly. Some of the tasks that were maybe monotonous or time-consuming. Maybe it's spending too many times drafting emails. Maybe it's spending too many times in Teams meetings that you can't be in 2 at the same time. Maybe it's content creation, right? Whether it's social media posts, blog posts, creating a marketing awareness campaign, or creating presentations for training or sales proposals or tenders or whatever it is, right? If you can just write them down, it allows you to discuss those pain points and how AI can address them. Again, giving you a little bit of a structure. What's your organization's data strategy, right? And this is something you can talk to JTec about, right? Organizing your data, right? AI is generally only as good as your data is, and if your data is, how to be politically correct, not good, then you need your AI won't be that good, right? You need to organize your data, have it structured in a meaningful and useful way. And of course, have a data security strategy in place, right? We're going to look at the video in a moment about security, but in a single sentence, Copilot will never show any user within your organization any information whatsoever that they don't already have access to, right? So that's from a security point of view. It automatically inherits the security controls, the policies, sensitivity labels, confidentiality labels, everything that you have in place already. Copilot would automatically inherit all of that. But here's the kicker, right? A little caveat. While it won't show information that they don't already have access to, it may show a user information they didn't know they had access to. Right? And this is a good thing, because as soon as you know they have access to information they shouldn't, you can close that security gap. But what is your data strategy to find that out? JTec can help you with a security review. They can help you get ready for preparing for the era of AI by looking at your data, by helping with organizing your data, maybe creating SharePoint sites for specific departments, locking those sites off from other departments so that only HR can see HR information, only finance can see finance information, and so on, right? So it is important you talk to JTec about that data strategy. And then lastly, this is a bit of a word salad. I hate kind of going through this, right? So does your organization have the necessary infrastructure and resources to support AI initiatives, right? All that means is, do you have a structure in place where when you get 2, 3, 4, 5 Copilot licenses, one for each department, right? Because every department will use it different to another department. So to see where is best for your company to use Copilot, you need each department to have a license, right? So if you get one license for every department, you need a structure in place where everybody using that license, right, the individual within those departments using that license, that they can come together on a Monday for a half an hour or a Friday for half an hour and talk about, where is this working really well for us? Where is this improving the productivity that we have, saving us time? Where is it improving the quality of our output? And most importantly, where is it not doing those things? So then you as an organization can take those learnings, take that education, and then decide how best to roll AI and Copilot out across the rest of your organization, right? Maybe it's working really well in marketing, so everybody there gets a license. Customer service, sales, fantastic. Everybody there gets a license. Finance, well, they didn't really get enough use out of it, so maybe we'll hold off on that for a moment, and so on. And you can only make those decisions when you have that kind of feedback. So having a structure in place where people come together, they note down and they write down what comes out of those conversations, so that you have, again, learnings there that you can take from it. Right? Now, I'm just going to play that video, but for the moment, I'm going to just stop sharing and resharing because I do what I always do, which is very annoying. I always start it without including sound. So I'm just going to include sound here. I'm going to reshare this for you. And we will look at this video of security in AI. And again, this is one of the better videos I've ever seen from Microsoft, which is actually saying something. Jeremy, if you can't hear this, just turn on your mic and shout at me, okay? But let's hope you can.
Microsoft 365 Copilot is transforming work with the power of generative AI. It's built on Microsoft's comprehensive approach to enterprise-grade security, compliance, privacy, identity, and responsible AI. Copilot automatically inherits your organization's Microsoft 365 security, compliance, and privacy policies, so you know your data is protected and always in your control. It all starts with your Microsoft 365 tenant. Data stored in your tenant is encrypted and only available to the users within that tenant. Your existing Microsoft 365 permissions and policies ensure that data won't leak between users and groups. And Copilot users only have access to data they've been granted permission to see in Microsoft 365, using the same technology customers have relied on for years. Your tenant sits inside the Microsoft 365 service boundary, where Microsoft's commitments to security, compliance, data location, and privacy are upheld. The Copilot large language models, or LLMs, that process your data sit within that same boundary, much like other Microsoft 365 services. Microsoft does not have eyes-on access, which means no one can view your data. Your data is not used to train the LLMs. And our EU customers can be confident that their data is processed within the EU data boundary. Microsoft 365 Copilot, enterprise-grade security and privacy for the era of generative AI.
So there it is. Again, one of the better videos I think I've seen from Microsoft, because it's actually very informative, really short, and kind of straight to the point.
Microsoft.
And one of the good things as well, and I'll just flick through to the next slide because it never really lets me. One of the good things as well about this, hopefully it answered a few questions for you guys, okay? And if you have any questions that didn't answer, just put them in the chat window or the Q&A, and we will discuss those at the end. But again, just to reiterate, it inherits all your security controls and your policies that you already have in place. And again, the OpenAI Foundation, the large language model, okay, it's not actually using your data to learn, right? Microsoft have terabytes upon God knows how many terabytes of publicly available data that they use to train the actual foundation of the OpenAI tool. So your data is not actually utilized for that. And nobody can see your data except for the users within your tenant, and they can only see the data you've permitted them to see, right? So that, again, hopefully alleviates any concerns about security. So that brings us to the main crux of this, right, which is a live demo, where we can see how it works within the Copilot for 365. This is just an image that I generated specifically for this actual webinar for my Q&A section. I thought that was cute. Now, and again, all my images are generated using Copilot. So this is your 365. Right? When you've got Copilot, or even when you've got 365, anything, you go to office.com and you'll be in your 365 environment, right? And if you've got Copilot, you can just click on this and it will open up. Now, if you've got Copilot Chat, it'll just be the web function. You won't have a toggle here, and you'll just be able to ask questions of the web and it will answer them for you, right? Again, like ChatGPT, like Gemini, very powerful, very useful, excellent. But when you've got Copilot for 365, again, where it differentiates itself is the work toggle. So you can actually look at your working environment as well as the web. And that's what's important. Now, if we look at the web and we look at use cases for this, right? Literally, you could ask anything of Copilot. I could ask it to give me the HTML code required to build a web page that will embed videos and so on, and it will give me the entire code I need within seconds, right? Extremely useful stuff. Here are some ready-made ones, right? When we talk about starting simple and building up levels of complexity, right? But looking simple for where it can help you in your day-to-day and save you a little bit of time here and there. I've estimated that if you've got an employee on about €25 an hour and they save even 2 hours a week using Copilot, then the license will have paid for itself 7 times over at just 2 hours a week. Now, I would have about hundreds of partners I deal with, all of which have hundreds of customers. So I get asked a lot of questions about Microsoft. That's a good part of my daily routine. And I'd know the answers to most of them, right? Because everyone asks the same questions. It's great. But there's plenty of times where I won't know the answer. And you've probably never had to do this, but if you've ever had to go through Microsoft's website and try to find a concrete answer to any question, you'd be in there for days, right? Now, even me, 10, 15, sometimes 20, 30 minutes trying to find the answer to a question. It's absolutely insane. So if I don't even know the answer to 4 of them, I may have wasted 2 hours on that alone each day trying to get the answers for the partner. Now, this is a question on which I didn't know the answer to. And after 10 minutes of trying to find it, I remembered, oh wait, I've got Copilot. I'm going to try and use this, right? And that's another thing, right? Copilot is an AI tool. We've all spent the last 10, 15, 20 years working without it. It's going to take a cognizant effort to actually utilize it when you have it. But I just asked the question, is data loss prevention a feature of the Microsoft E3 subscription? And within 2 seconds, I have the answer. Again, saving me 10, 15 minutes. And I can tell where the answer is being derived from. Here's my resources. So I know I can trust this. It's from Microsoft websites, right? If I saw Wikipedia here, I might want to question it. But currently, I'm happy with that. I can copy it, and I'm going to send that to the partner straight away. That's the answer. And of course, I can find out more about it. It's asking me, what data loss preventions policies are available, and how do I set them up, and how can I customize them, right? So I can get even more information here, should I need to. And that's just one aspect of Copilot. This one aspect could easily save me an hour a day. That's 5 hours a week, not 2. So my license, just utilizing it for this and no other purpose, is paying for itself 20 times over. Just using it for this. Hopefully everything else I show you from this point onwards is actually more impressive. One of the reasons I wanted to use Copilot, right, I needed to build prompts, right, because what I'm trying to ask you guys to do, you all have different companies and different industries doing different things. So your day-to-day will be different to my day-to-day, and I can only really show you what I do on a day-to-day. But like that, your employees in marketing, HR, sales, customer service, finance, their day-to-day will be different to each other as well. So you're trying to think about what you see me do and how you could utilize it within your role specifically, right? I created a prompt based on if my manager actually asked me, John, I want you to set up a marketing awareness campaign. We're going to kick this off in May. We wanted to run for like 3 months. It's going to be around security and 365 and why security is so important. Could you get started on that for me? If my manager asked me to do that, I'd be like a deer in headlights, right? I wouldn't even know where to start. And I'd be like one of these guys who have a blank page. I know you see, whether you're a writer or a screenwriter or anybody who creates content of any kind and you're staring at a blank page, there's nothing worse than that. And that's where Copilot can really help you because it'll help you to stop procrastinating looking at a blank page. I simply ask Copilot to create a step-by-step guide on how to build a marketing awareness campaign around security in 365, putting in a few different parameters like I wanted to include how to reach my base and new customers. I want to include above the line marketing and social media posts and so on. And when I click go, within about 20 seconds, I'll have a full step-by-step guide on how to do what it is I'm being asked to do. And again, it's not about it's going to create my marketing campaign for me. It's just going to help me get started in doing it itself. It's going to just give me a little roadmap here that I can follow in order to get this done. And now I can actually do it in a proper way. And you can go further with it, right? I could get examples of different kind of content, tools that I could use to track KPIs, or I could ask it, take the above and create a schedule to complete this by the end of April, I don't work weekends and I can only dedicate 2 hours a day to this task, right? Something like that. And now, not only now do I have a step-by-step guide on how I'm going to create this marketing awareness campaign, I've actually got like a schedule that I can actually adhere to and follow in order to achieve it by the end of, wait, did I say May? Sorry, I meant April. It should be done by April. Hold on a second. We're going to redo that one. Maybe there's not enough hours in the time frame I'm allotting for it, because usually when I ask it this question, I've got about 2 months to actually complete it. But yeah, there's not enough hours in the day. That's my problem. So there's the learning curve right there. Now, if I said, for argument's sake, if I said I want to get it done by June, then I'd probably get one that aligns itself closer with what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, and there's a schedule that will align itself to June and get it completed. Right? But again, you can ask yourself many, many, many things of this in order to get what you want. Right? It is almost unlimited as opposed to the questions you can ask it and the information that you can get back from it. One such thing I got was I was doing a in-person webinar for a customer who was a shipping agency, and they were in charge of just like insurance on shipping, making sure the comings and goings and so forth were on time. And one of the people within that workshop came up to me and just asked, could Copilot create a Python script that would actually generate a heat map based on various units of measure, etc. And I was like, just looking at her, I was like, I have absolutely no idea, right? It's not something I've ever asked it. But I says, look, you live and die by the sword, so let's ask it the question. And I've saved it because it was really good, right? I'm going to change this and just ask Copilot, create a Python script to create a cold to hot, blue to red heat map based on 300 units of measure, and display the heat map and show that the code that was used, right? And here we'll see. And here we'll see the Python script being generated. You see it there, and then there's our Python script. Here's our cold to hot, blue to red heat map. Again, really, really, really powerful stuff. Now, your work toggle. This is where it almost becomes even more impressive, right? If I come in at the start of a day, I can actually ask Copilot, list for me all meetings I have today and tomorrow, for argument's sake. Copilot is now able to access my Teams, my calendar, and it's going to be able to list for me all the meetings that I have today and tomorrow. I'm actually double booked at 3 o'clock, as you can see, because I'm supposed to have a town hall at the moment as well. And it's actually telling me that this meeting conflicts with the workshop I'm delivering right now. So that's interesting. And then again, the meetings I have tomorrow as well, right? So lots of different information there that I can now utilize. I can get ready for meetings. I can prepare properly for meetings. I can organize my day. I could say, for argument's sake, you know what? Let's say this is a sales call that I have with a potential customer that I've been working on for a couple of weeks. I could ask Copilot, right? Help me prepare. That's not how I spell it. Luckily, my spelling, I'm not going to fix it. Copilot will know what I'm trying to say. Help me prepare for this meeting. Paste it in. By summarizing all emails in the last 2 weeks with JTec, right? and Copilot will be able to help provide me with that information. And this is really important because if I have a sales proposal coming up, right, I could take here's a summary of the emails, the different emails that have come in, the different things that have been discussed, and so forth, right? Now, if I want to, I could have a sale meeting coming up. I'm able to prepare for that meeting, get the information I need. I could go into Outlook and use Copilot and get an entire email thread that I've had with Jeremy and have that entire thread summarized if I wanted to. You know, and maybe Jeremy has said, you know, I've got a game of golf coming up next week while the weather is good, or said something else, and I've got that sales proposal meeting now in about half an hour. I can open with something like that, right? That I otherwise would have completely forgotten and never even be able to think about. So being able to get this kind of information just at your fingertips regarding your meetings, your day, how it looks, emails, etc., is really, really powerful. I can also look up by hitting / I can look up any document or file or person or emails or meetings, etc., to get information about them, right? So for instance, if I have a document like this document I have here, which I know is about 4 pages or 5 pages, I can ask Copilot, summarize this in 10 bullet points. And now I can get ready for something by summarizing the document. This is maybe I'm working on a project, maybe I've got something going on, and it'll give me a summary of it in 10 bullet points. Now I can ask that question in a number of ways. I could say summarize it in 10 bullet points, giving me as much technical information as possible, or keep it at a high level for a sales call, or this is for a managing director, keep it at a very, very high level, right? Or this is for a senior engineer, give me as much technical detail as possible. And once you give the prompt that level of detail, it will answer you in such a way that makes sense. Right? But you can get information. I can interrogate any documents I want, get information from them. I could bring up a contract and ask Copilot, does this contract have X clause in it? And if not, then I know to enter it in because I wanted to check instead of me having to read through that document, right? So again, there's loads of different use cases within the work option of the 365 environment. Hopefully you can think of even more. But if we move into the different applications themselves, right, even starting with Excel, you can use Copilot within Excel itself, right? So we see here, I have a Copilot option up here. If I click on that, I can now ask Copilot questions of this data set, right? Which is, don't know how many hundreds or thousands of lines that are basically just random car sales and vehicle sales to different companies in different countries, right? Just a sample file. And looking at it, I can't really derive anything from this, right? It's just a load of data, just a big massive data dump. Now, if you're used to Excel, you can create pivot tables or do conditional formatting and kind of get information you want to do, right? But it'll take a while and you kind of need to be proficient with Excel to do those things. I've worked in many of a direct sales teams where you get a massive data dump of potential customers or existing customers who have done X amount of business with you for X amount of time periods. And I've had to take those sales teams into meetings where together we spend hours filtering through them, bringing up pivot tables, getting different bits of insights from them so that they can actually use the details to, build up an actual strategy of who they're going to call and when. Now, any sales team or any people using Excel can get what they need from it. If I want to know who my top 10 customers are, I can just ask, show me the top 10 customers by sales and create a bar chart. So now not only will I have a pivot table with my top 10 customers by sales, I'll actually have a visual representation of that information that I can use if I need to, right? So Copilot goes about pulling together what who those top 10 customers are, and it allows me to add it as a new sheet. When I click add as a new sheet, it'll automatically come in here. Here they are, my top 10 customers by sales, and of course my little visual representation of that information. And I can do that regarding any question, right? If I want to know what are my top selling product lines, or what are the top performing countries by sales, give me the top 5 performing countries, give me the worst 5 performing countries. Then I can make decisions based on those insights, right? Do I take resources out of the best 5 and put them into the worst 5 to boost it up, or do I just remove resources from the worst side because it's just too low to spend any more time there, and so forth. But I can get any insights I want by just asking the question, right? You can also, other than getting insights of the data itself, you can manipulate the data within the data set. Let's say we want to know what's good and what's bad, right? We'll give it a fictitious scenario. Let's say anything over 4,000 is good and anything under 4,000 is bad, right? That's very hard to see looking at this. Whereas if I just want to create a conditional access policy, a conditional formatting to show me, I could. So I could say, and I'll just unhighlight it, I'll just say format the column D sales and show all sales over 4,000 in blue and all sales under 4,000 in red cell. I'm just going to say blue cell as well because sometimes it just colors the actual font blue and red. Even just something simple like that. Copilot will take this, look at the data set, it will create the conditional format that's required, show it to you, which it's doing now, and then allow me to apply it to this data set. And within a couple of seconds, I have a very good visual idea of what's good and what's bad now looking at this. Obviously, you've got the ones that are in between, which are exactly 4,000. But other than that, you've got exactly what you want. And it's not just formatting cells. I could even go as far as creating formulas or fixing formulas within a data set, right? So again, let's say I wanted an if statement, right? I used to work in a reporting role where I had to do reports around the performance of sales team members. And I remember like there were certain bonuses paid out at certain thresholds, and I had to create an if statement and an and statement that was like a paragraph long, right? The thing actually broke my heart. But now I could do that way simpler. I could just say create an if statement that will show the word rubbish when sales are below 4,000 and you're amazing, right? John, we go as far as my name. When sales are above 4,000. And just like the conditional formatting, we'll see now it's going to create the formula required to achieve this. It'll show it to me, as you can see here. It'll even allow me just to copy it. And if I paste that format in here, it'll show me when I'm rubbish and when I'm amazing. And that you can get very, very, again, depending on your own level of experience with Excel, you can get very, very complex with those formulas and what it is you're trying to achieve and what it is you're trying to do. And you can keep it at a very simple way in order to help you just gain insights into the information and data that's here that you can actually use, right? And even beyond that, I could change these dollar signs to euro signs, add 2 decimal places, remove 2 decimal places, right? If I wanted to know what my euro version of these sales were, I could simply ask Copilot, create a new column with sales multiplied by 1.04, which was the exchange rate for dollar to euro. I don't know what it is now, and change the value to euro symbol, right? Something like that. Again, depends on your prompt, but just something simple. And again, Copilot now should be able to easily take what's in column D, even though I didn't specify column D, multiply it by the exchange rate of 1.04, which it's doing now, creating a new column of everything with a euro symbol that if I want to, I could copy and paste, but I'll just insert the column at the end of my worksheet. Now here's my sales in euros, and it's even created a title, sales in euros. I already had one. So again, for me, that's extremely impressive because it allows somebody who's not efficient in Excel to become efficient. It doesn't just do things for them, it shows them what it's doing. So if they ever wanted to try that themselves, they can. So it's also a good learning tool. And you can also go as far as in the web here, ask Excel, give me a step-by-step guide on creating if and statements, or VLOOKUP statements, or whatever it is you need, right? Because I used to have to go into Google and try and find this stuff. And now, well, it's doing it in a Python script. Hold on a second. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will just, what I should have done, I'll just start a new chat. Give me a step-by-step guide on creating if-and statements tutorial, something like that. And then it should be able to do that for me. It's actually showing how it's done. Right? And you can use Copilot as a method of learning and teaching. You can even ask Copilot, how can I use Copilot to achieve X, Y, or Z? Right? So again, very, very important. So that's insights, getting data, changing data, manipulating data, using Excel, using Copilot, and there's loads of other things that you can use it for. In fact, you can get an advanced analytics done of everything in here. And Copilot will basically create an analyst result using Python script, and then it will show you what it's done. So if I want to hear, I can start the advanced analyst, it creates a new sheet, and it gives me lots of information now with regards to my data. And it shows me the Python code that it's using to create that information. Right, so there's the Python code there. So that's how complex and the level of complexity that you can get to. This will just keep going on for a while. Right, so again, there's lots you can do with regards to Excel. If we look at Word very quickly, we open a blank document. When you use Word, whether it's creating content, reports, training files, brochures, whatever it is you're creating or using it for, you can now draft it with Copilot. You just click on that and essentially ask it to do whatever you need, right? For instance, I had one where I was doing an in-person event with about 40 solicitors, and they were struggling at the time, I think, to really kind of correlate what I was doing with their own kind of day-to-day. Except one of the guys there used Copilot, so he came up to me and he just said, enter in this prompt, which I then saved, because it was really useful. I'm an Irish solicitor. Draft a letter to a client who's instructed me to sell their house, outlining the details of the Irish conveyancing process, the documents they must provide me, and how the process will work. Include an estimate of fees and then access internet resources, particularly the Law Society of Ireland. So that's a source. That's really important. My name is blah, 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 address, and so on. And within a few seconds of that then, they have exactly what it is they've asked for. They've got a letter outlining the Irish conveyancing process, the documents that are required, an estimate of fees, and of course it finishes off. And that then turned on a lot of light bulbs in solicitors' heads about just the level of things that they could do with this, the amount of time that they could save, just to generate something quickly. Now that doesn't mean you say, yeah, that's great, and you send it. You never take anything AI or Copilot gives you and then just pass it off as your own. You will always take it as a starting point, and then you need to make your own of it, tweak it, change it, get closer to the end product that you actually want. The better your prompting skills and the better the prompts that you create, the closer to your end product that you will be, but you still need to tweak and do something before you actually then use it. So you keep that then, and that's it. And you can add to that, you can remove from it. Right? You could say, for argument's sake, you know what? I'll take all of these information and I want Copilot to visualize that as a table as opposed to bullet points. And then it will just change it into a table here, we'll see here, right? And you say, I'm going to keep that. And you could say, for argument's sake, I'll take the part here. Let's say this is very, very formal, right? And it should be. It's a letter from a solicitor, but let's say it wasn't. Let's say it was something else. You could ask Copilot, rewrite this to be far more casual. And then Copilot, again, it should be able to just reword it, which it does. Just a heads up. The fees mentioned are rough estimates, blah, blah, blah. So really, really more casual as opposed to what it was previously. So I'll keep that. And I can remove that now, right? So loads of things you can do with creating documentation. Other than creating documentation, some of the other things you can do within Word is you can compare documents with each other. right? So you could have a tender, and you could have a response to the tender itself, and you could ask Copilot, compare these two documents. Have I answered all questions and queries within this tender? And it'll be able to give you that information. Or you could have two contracts, contract A and contract B. You could ask Copilot, compare contract B to contract A. Are all the same clauses within contract B that are in contract A? And if not, list the ones that are missing. And now, instead of you having to read through a 50-page document or whatever the case may be, you can get that information straight away and utilize it and get whatever you want to do done quicker. Right? My use case is actually in HR. Right? If you've got a small HR department or maybe not a HR department at all, and you want to hire for a job, I used Copilot to create a job spec. Right? It was done within seconds and it was perfect. I actually didn't need to amend it. But what happens when you send that job spec out into the world, right? You're going to get people applying for the job. They're going to be sending you in CVs. So instead of you having to read through all of the CVs one by one to determine who's best and who's not best for the job, you can actually use Copilot to compare the CVs with the job spec and give you a report or tell you how well or appropriate they are for that job. Right? So for instance, I've got a bunch of CVs, and so as not to offend anybody, all the CVs are me, right? They're just me at different phases maybe in my life, right? So I could say to Copilot, compare the CV, hit /, as long as you know the name, you can find the document, right? With the CV, and the CV to the job spec, right, which I have ingeniously named job spec. And I'm asking it, highlight who the best person is from the job, rate the CVs from 1 to 10 based against the job spec, and provide the information in form of a report, including a table at the end. And now, instead of me having to read through those 3 CVs, I get a report telling me who is the best person for the job. This allows me to avoid any unconscious bias, or God forbid conscious bias, where it doesn't care about someone's gender or their race. All it looks at is the requirements in the job spec and then how their CV matches up to that. Education, work experience, skills. And we can see here Lisa is the best person for the job, right? She's a 10 out of 10 as opposed to Homer, who's, I mean, it's a little bit insulting that it's only a 1 out of 10. But if you want to know why, right, Homer doesn't have the relevant experience in cloud and IT solutions, right? His work revolves around fast food and maybe entertainment and so on, right? He has the basic skills, but not what's required. Bart Simpson, well, he's 10 years old, so we can ignore that. Lisa, she has a degree in whatever. She has 16 years experience in cloud solutions. Right? She's ideal for the job. Right? So you can get, and if somebody says, well, why are you putting one through over the others? You've got a quick and simple report of why, all done for you. Right? So comparing documents, again, really, really useful use case. Another thing could be you have actual template files that you want. And then you want to recreate those files, but you want to make subtle or slight changes to them, but keep the entire format that's there. You can do that, right? You can ask Copilot, create this document, and then you reference your formatted document that you want, right? I've got a little playful document here about Superman, right? You say, create this document, and keep everything formatted the same. But change, and for me, I'll just do this as an example, right? All references and mentions of Clark and Superman to John, right? Just something simple. And straight away now you've got a new document, exactly what was in the other document, but instead of it being everything you need to know about Superman, it's everything you need to know about John. Right? And it should be able to create that document for you, again, making any changes that you've asked it to make. Right? So you can utilize formats that you've already got, or you can simply make certain changes to documents that you've already got in place as well. Now, this shouldn't take this long, so I'm just going to stop that for a second. And I'm just going to kick it off again. There you go. Now it's kicking in. Right? And all of that works fine. So John, also known as Kal-El, blah, blah, blah. His parents, adopted parents for John, blah, blah, blah. So it's all there with the changes you've made. keeping the exact same document in the exact same structure, except now it's just all about me. Right? So hopefully you could see use cases for that as well. Right? Ways in which you can streamline workflows or change work processes in order to get to where you want to be much faster. PowerPoint is a tool that I use all the time, right? Whether it's creating training documents and delivering training presentations or sales proposals or workshops on various different things, I need to create an awful lot of presentations. We talked about that 2 hours of time being saved a week could pay for the license 7 times over, and I mentioned that I would save double that with just answering questions. Well, creating a PowerPoint document would normally take me easily an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on the topic, right? Trying to create it completely from scratch. Now it's 3:55. I'm going to create one in 5 minutes. And how I do it, it's actually 3:56 now, just so it'd be 4:01 when I'm finished, or 4:01. So you don't create it from a prompt. That's actually very weak. It's not that powerful, right? Every single slide has an image on it. It doesn't look that good. It's pulling from everywhere, the internet, your files, your folders. So the information can be quite broad and it can be quite vague, right? What you want to do is build your presentation from an existing file. But if you don't have that file, you can just create one from scratch. If you have the file, even better. But let's say you don't. Let's say I need to create a presentation, right? Jeremy comes and says, John, I want to create a presentation around security in Microsoft 365 and why it's so important, right? Because it is one of the most important things there is. I could just create a prompt here very quickly. Say I'll take this one here, right? And I can pop this in to my Word document. And I can tell it, essentially, create a report around security and business premium plans, emphasize the importance of data protection and compliance for small to medium-sized businesses. This is for the purpose of a presentation, right? And then I can give it headings that I want it to go through. And I determine what headings these are. I determine what order they're in because they're the order in which I want to present. Case studies and best practices. I don't need that. But what I would like is common threats and mitigating strategies. I like that, right? Copilot is actually prompting me to put things in. The financial costs of a security breach. That's good. Possible brand damage from a breach, right? Very good. And then let's say I want to just finish with a conclusion. And this is the presentation I want to give, the order in which I want to give it, etc. Right? And again, you see here, it keeps asking me to do stuff. I've got about 16,000 characters I could create this with, but that's enough for me for the purposes of this. And within 20 seconds, 30 seconds, I'm going to have a document that I can actually use for this presentation, right? It's a 3-page document. Basically, it's 2 pages. So I'm going to keep this. And again, like before, I could reword this, make it more casual. I could take this information here and I could turn it into a table if I wanted to. But once you've got the document and you're happy with it, then all you need to do is, I'm going to just copy it. Right? I'm going to copy a link to this document. And then all you need to do is in your presentation, click on create a presentation from a file. Find the document or paste your link to the document and click go. And now Copilot should be able to go about creating the order in that document, everything that's going to be discussed in the order it's going to be discussed in. It'll then start creating the slides for the presentation itself. And it'll even generate speaker notes. So if you're the kind of person who uses speaker notes when delivering a presentation, it'll generate them for you. And now I have my presentation on security, and as basic as this looks, the most important part is the information within it, which I know is perfect because it's from my document, right? I can easily now just go into design, pick out my company template that has my logo in the top right hand corner, my color palette, my font style for my branding, etc. And if you don't have one of those, you can just utilize one of these designs, go into designer, and now I can just spend a little bit of time making the presentation look and flow a little bit better, right? I go into the agenda here, and maybe I like how this looks, right? I have this introduction to Microsoft Business Premium. I don't want images because it stops my smart art from working. So designer should kick back in when I remove that, and now I can use smart art, right? So I like this instead. And I can go through this very, very quickly, making it look and feel the way I want. And I have this 9-slide deck now that I can provide. Here's my table as well that Copilot created, but I'm going to just use this slide. Financial cost of a security breach, very interesting. Another image that I don't want, that I can remove. Just highlight that, delete it, let designer kick back in, and I'll go with this one. And then lastly, get rid of that, and we are done. And I think with a minute to spare. There we go, 4 minutes. I have a presentation from start to finish that instead of me spending an hour or an hour and a half actually creating, now I've saved myself that time. That doesn't mean I just go off and make tea and twiddle my thumbs for an hour. I could learn the presentation, practice it. So now my delivery of this is going to be way more useful to the recipient, right? Whether it's a team that I'm training or whether it's a sales that I'm working on, it'll be a much better delivery of the presentation because I have time to actually go through it. Maybe this slide is a little bit repetitive, so I'll take it out and maybe I'll just add another one, right? But ultimately it's all done. And of course you can use Copilot to create great images, right? I could in the web, I could say to Copilot, right? Why is this so big? Let me see if I can minus this. There we go. I could say to Copilot, I'm just going to minimize this and then bring it up again. There it is. Create a 3D CGI render of a hacker, right? In a red hooded coat in a dark room with blue hue and a window with rain outside at a laptop with red matrix code on the screen. Something like that, right? Really specific. And again, you can get all the different kind of images you want, logos, cartoon images, basic images, really creative images. And again, all the images I use in my presentations are generally AI generated. And I try and keep them as informal as possible just to make the presentation even slightly interesting. So we see here, Copilot will now go about creating 3 or 4 options for that image. And I can take the one that I like the most, add it to my presentation or add it to my brochure that I'm creating, or whatever my use case is for this image, right? And let's say I like the look of this one, right? Pretty much exactly what I asked for. I copy that and I'm just going to put it into my presentation here. Now I'd normally just save that into my library of photos, etc. But I'm going to put that into my presentation and I like how that looks now. And you can do that with all the other slides, kind of create images that go with them that might be interesting or unique, right? But again, I'm only over now because I'm actually playing with it. This was all done within 4 minutes. So hopefully you can see how that can save you time. This presentation, by the way, is also a lot better than I would have created just trying to figure out what I'm doing myself, putting everything in bit by bit. So not only is it faster, it's also better, and it allows me to focus on maybe some other partner or customer needs something else from me. So now I have time to go and do that because I've done this one so quickly. Right? Now what I want to jump into very, very quickly is agents. Right? Before we talk about teams, one of the most powerful aspects, we're going to look at agents. Now the reason agents is so good is because you would actually normally need a completely different license to create agents, right? You need a Copilot Studio license, right? Which can be very expensive. But when you have Copilot for 365, it actually gives you a Copilot Studio license. So you can create agents if you want, right? Now for the sake of demonstrative purposes, I created 3 agents for various use cases. Now, this is like when I talked about Copilot 365. This is about starting off simple and then building up levels of complexity over time when you become used to what you can do and you learn the art of what's actually possible within this. I've seen customers create agents that actually help them answer tenders. Things that would normally take 2 days, they're now doing in 2 hours, and they're winning those tenders because of that. I've seen customers create agents. I think they were hotel firms or something, and they've created agents that they've then added to their websites. They've published the agents to their websites that answer questions for those customers. But they also provide links to booking pages in order to try and drive business using those agents and so forth. So there's really, really massive levels of complexity you can get with this, right? But for me, again, it's always about simplicity. Finding a use case, a little bit of an annoyance that you can use AI to solve. One of those annoyances for me was when I get asked by one of our customers, the partner, for pricing, right? You will know yourselves from Purchasing 365 that most options will be annual commitment, billed annually. Annual commitment, billed monthly. Monthly commitment, billed monthly, right? Every product nearly has those three options. For me to get pricing to one of our partners, I have to go into our portal and I have to search for each product individually. And it only gives me the pricing for that product. So then I have to take a screenshot of that, put it in the email, and then go to the next product they asked for. And if I get asked for 5 or 6 or 7 in one email, I could easily waste 5 or 10 minutes just finding that product, getting the screenshot of it, sending it on. Really annoying, right? So I decided to create private cache. This agent, I've simply linked him to a knowledge base, which is an Excel file. Nothing too complex, right? And I've given him an instruction, right? So you give your agent a name, simple. I gave him a little 30 by 30 pixel icon. You give him a description, completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter what it is. What's really important is you give it an instruction. My agent's instruction is access the pricing files, always return cost and recommended retail price with any term commitments and billing cycles for all products, for all segments or a specific segment asked for, and always provide the answer in the form of, and it's this structure that I want everything in. And then he's pointing at my knowledge base, this sample price file. Now these prices are random prices for products that I basically multiplied by 17 different numbers, divided by 18 different numbers, and multiplied by another 7 numbers. So no value in this is accurate. But what I can do now is I can simply ask my agent, give me pricing for business basic, business standard, and business premium. And instead of me then having to go in and search for those individually and take screenshots of them one by one and put them into an email, within 20-30 seconds, my agent, he will simply go through the knowledge base that I've assigned to him, and he'll be able to pull the information that I'm asking for, and following the instruction is one of the most important parts, he'll give me what I've asked. Now I can simply take that and send it to my partner straight away. Again, a simple use case that will actually save me 5 or 10 minutes every time I'm asked for pricing, which could be 10 or 20 times a day. So 5 minutes times 10 times a day, that's nearly an hour saved a day. So remember, 2 hours a week was the license paying for itself 10 times over. Between being asked questions, being asked for pricing, or creating presentations, I think I've demonstrated that I'm able to save easily a day's worth of work in the course of a week, allowing me to focus on much more important things. These agents are brilliant. I've got Dobby, the Microsoft elf here. Now, Dobby is really good because I have him pointing at every single piece of Microsoft documentation that I have in my files, right? So I created all these documents for the purposes of training, right? All documents around loads of different things on Microsoft, including our website actually, around security and so on. And Dobby the house elf has an instruction. So if I asked him, is Intune a feature of the business premium subscription, right? And again, you could find your own use case. Maybe it's just getting questions depending on what job and role you have. And then Dobby will answer it in the way I've asked him to. So he will say, Master asked Dobby, is Intune a feature of the included in business premium subscription? And the answer is yes. Intune is included in the business premium, the subscription. It is a cloud-based service that focuses on mobile device management and mobile application management, etc., etc. Right? Now, if I also had Dobby hooked up to my pricing file, I could ask it for a price as well. So not only would it give me the answer and the information, it would give me the price of it, all in one place, which I'm going to do. So again, really, really useful information, because instead of me asking the internet for this, and then having to make sure it's correct using the resources, I know the documentation this is pulling from. This is my documentation, so I know it's accurate. So hopefully you can think about this, because we did a hackathon on building agents, right? It's very easy to create them. You give it a name, as mentioned, a description, an instruction, you point it at a knowledge base, and then you test it. And then you can actually publish the agent into Teams so that other users can actually utilize that agent for whatever the goals are, right? And you can publish it to your website, again, depending on how complex or the level of complexity you want. And then we asked partners and customers to sit down and maybe think about the kind of agents they could create for themselves. And within 40 minutes of me just walking around the room, this was like last Wednesday, literally today, last week. And we were walking around the room, right? We rented out Goffs, a big room in Goffs, and we had partners there, and we walked around it, and we were looking at the different use cases. Some people were hooking up to their support ticket systems. So they were getting the agents to answer questions based on frequently asked questions and the tickets that were coming in. Some of the agents were looking at project management files and product documentation, right? So they were basically asking the agent, where is this project in its timeline, and does it have the available products required to finish it? And the agent was able to go through the project management file, big Excel file, get the information for the partner, and then it was able to then go into their product file and mention all the products that are currently available, which it requires in order to finish it, and which ones are not available, so that then they can go about making sure they order what they need, right? Again, really, really great use cases during that session we had, and hopefully you guys can maybe think of where you could use agents, right? Now, it is very, very simple to build an agent, right? Create new agent. This is not complex. I could actually ask Copilot, I want to build an agent that will do X, and it will start building it for me. But if I want, I could just skip to configure it myself. And again, it's as simple as agent, right? I'm going to call this agent JTec, right? Give it an icon, 30 pixel by 30 pixel, right? Has to be small. Give it a description, as I mentioned, not very difficult. So it answers questions for JTec, right? Then you give it an instruction. Answer all questions with a question, right? That'd be interesting, actually. And then what you do is you create the agent. And once the agent is set up and you've created it, you can then point it at a knowledge base. This can be a single file. It can be multiple files. It can be an entire SharePoint site, a library of information. It could be websites, right? Once your agent is created, you can then just point the agent at a knowledge base. There it is there. Public website, a SharePoint site, multiple files and folders. If you want to get really advanced, you could also attach it to, and this should also be a lot more. There might be something not filtering through, but you can point it to Salesforce, GitHub, MailChimp, you can HubSpot. You can assign it to SQL servers or various Azure servers. Anything you want, you'll be able to attach it to them. But of course, that's reaching levels of complexity that you need to work towards over time. Keeping it simple, your website or a SharePoint site or a single document, again, depending on the use case. Now, I'll create a single document here. I'm just going to pick one of those files that I had. Where's my information here, right? I'll just pick up one of these business premium files because I know what's in that, right? And I'll add it. And now my agent will look at that file and answer questions, but only based on the information he has available to him in that file. And then you can test your agent. And when you've tested it, as mentioned, you see here at the top, you can publish the agent. So that again, it could go into the 365. You see here in 365, get agents. Your staff will be able to get agents that you've published in here. Or you could publish it to Teams, right? So agents built by Microsoft or agents that you've built, right? You can add them here. Or even in Teams, you could publish your agent so that other people could utilize it themselves, right? Now, this agent is built, right? Over time as well, when again you want to reach levels of complexity, you could add an action, right? In order to empower the agent to actually complete specific tasks. You could add triggers. So something other than a prompt could trigger your agent into working. So for me, you could be like, if I get an email, maybe that email could trigger your agent, and the agent could respond to the email, and all you have to do is make sure the response is correct and kick it off, right? You could get an order in. Maybe you getting an order into your order system, and if you have your agent connected to the order system using one of the connectors, again, we're reaching levels of complexity here, but if you had that in place, an order coming in could trigger the agent, and he could then answer that order. And so forth, right? Or maybe the agent can check your stock files to make sure that everything is required for that order is actually available, right? What are features of Business Premium right now? I don't know if this will work, right? I just want to see if it'll answer the question with a question, simply because that was my instruction. Are you looking for information on Business Premium? So it actually worked, right? So it's answering the question with a correction, with a question. Very funny. So hopefully you can see there, building agents. It's very, very simple, or it can be very complex, but it is very easy to get started. And there's infinite use cases for these agents that will help a person within their role or their job just do what they need to do, maybe just slightly quicker, otherwise normally would have. Now, I'm going to just quickly jump into a window before we go into a bit of a Q&A and look at Teams specifically. One of the more powerful aspects of Copilot. As a salesperson who I worked in direct sales for like 15 years, I would have loved to have had Copilot and Teams when I did sales, right? Because when I did sales, I just had Teams calls with potential customers. I was scribbling on piece of papers. I was trying to align their pain points with my solutions, features, and how it could help them, half listening to what they were saying, half trying to write stuff down, illegible. I wouldn't have been able to read it an hour later, let alone a week later, right? Completely useless. Now I could give a potential client 100% of my concentration, listen to what they're saying, answer questions appropriately, guide the conversation where I wanted to go, and never have to worry about the meeting or the notes in that sense. Because I can go to Copilot, and just like my diploma that I dictated into a big document, Copilot, if you turn on the transcript, is creating a transcript, right? You can see here, it's just a mountain of words, me just speaking at you for the last hour and 20 minutes, right? But with Copilot, this actually becomes useful. You can ask questions of this, right? If this was a proper meeting, where whether it's an internal meeting you have every Monday, or whether it's a sales meeting you're having with a potential client and a managing director, chief financial officer, chief operations officer, all of which have different perspectives on what they need, you can ask it questions like, what did people think of this particular feature? What did they agree on? What did they disagree on? You could ask it to show me all the actions or tasks that were handed out during this meeting, right? I could say, for instance, summarize everything John said about Excel, and I can get a summary then of everything I said about Excel, right, from the meeting. So from a sales point of view, this is worth its weight in gold. Just being able to get information at your fingertips from meetings you've had with potential clients, so that final pitch meeting will go way better. I could, if you're late for a meeting, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, what happens? Normally everybody stops, regurgitates what you missed, and everybody's wasting time. Now you can just recap the meeting so far, and you'll get a brief summary on everything that's happened until that point. Nobody has to stop. List the different perspectives by topic. These are just ready-made prompts. I could say, for instance, you've got a multinational workforce, right? I could ask it, summarize everything John said about Excel in French. Okay, because maybe you're French, and while you can speak English perfectly well, it may be more comforting or just easier for you to catch up on a project if you're able to read the entire summary of a 2-hour meeting in your own language. Again, really, really useful, right? This is really, really powerful tool, because maybe you've had a meeting 2 weeks ago and you weren't sure about an aspect of it. Instead of having to look at the recording again or see who took the meeting notes or whatever, you can just go into that meeting, pull out any piece of information you want, and then have it at your fingertips, right? So that in Teams for me is one of the biggest use cases and time savers. Like when I did that course, by the way, I coincidentally have a meeting every Wednesday internally in the office, which is why I'm in my office and not at home today, right? And that would happen at the same time. It was a 2-hour meeting that I missed for about 12 weeks. All I would do is at 12:15 every Wednesday, I'd go into Teams, I'd open the meeting up and I'd simply ask Copilot, show me every time my name was mentioned, right? See how much trouble I'm in, right? Show me every time Copilot was mentioned. Now give me all the key takeaways from this meeting and any actions that were handed out. And within 10 minutes, I'm completely caught up on a 2-hour meeting I didn't even attend, right? So really, really good use cases. Now, if you want to, we can open this up for a quick Q&A. If anybody has any questions, you should be able to turn on your mics and ask away. We do have one question here from Kim. Do you have any advice on the legal aspects of generating images and using them and changing them to designs? Yes. So Microsoft have renewed their copyright stance on all images generated by Copilot. They will stand over any customer who generates images that you won't um, break any copyright images, right? So if you try to create a logo of a BMW logo, there's a good chance it won't generate it exactly as a BMW logo looks. If you try and generate a red truck with Coca-Cola on it in the style of Coca-Cola, it probably won't generate it exactly like the style of Coca-Cola, but it will generate whatever it is you're asking for. It owns the images though, right? So you can't sell them, but you can use them in a commercial sense that if you have a work presentation, if you're creating a brochure, if you're creating something, you can definitely utilize the images that you're creating using Copilot, but you can't sell those images as your own, right? Those images themselves aren't for sale, but you can use them in a commercial sense. And you shouldn't be breaking any copyright law, and Microsoft will stand behind you if anybody ever tried to bring a case against you because they're happy with their copyright policies. So that's a great question, Kim. Thank you. Has anybody got any other questions? There's none in the chat there, so I'd like to answer anything anybody else has before we maybe finish up.
Yes, John, I have a wee question here. It's Jake here.
Thanks,
from
Ian.
DLK.
Oh, Jake, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I was just wondering, do you have any concerns or maybe dangers other than legality issues with, implementing this into our business? There's nothing that you'd be concerned about personally, or are you quite confident?
No, I'd have zero concerns. I mean, we have it ourselves. You have there are AI tools out there, and I'd be concerned with a company using web-based AI tools that live outside of their environment because it would require removing data from your secure environment and putting it there. That's why I would actually advise you to use something like Copilot because it's built into your 365 environment and it incorporates all of those security controls. And we do have that video that you will be sent the deck, by the way, and you'll be sent a recording of this. So if you want to, you can always look at that video again around security just to get a good understanding of it, Jake. But there shouldn't be any issues. Now, when you're implementing Copilot and AI into your workforce, you do want to have a chat with Jeremy and JTec about your organization's data and the security of your data. You want to make sure that at the moment, only people in your organization can see information that they're allowed to see. Copilot will never show them anything they're not allowed to see, but like I said before, it may show them something they didn't know they could see. So you just want to be aware of that. And we always recommend, and if I share my screen very, very briefly, we recommend that when you are rolling out Copilot, you do so in the following way, right? Just remove that. You go into purchasing 1 or 2 licenses for each of your departments, right? So if you've got like 5 departments, that's 5 or 10 licenses, right? But basically 1 to 2 licenses for each department. You identify the innovative Copilot champions within those departments, people who will use the solution, try and break it even, who will try and get the most from it, and who you trust, because then if they see information they shouldn't, they'll tell you. And that way then you also allow all your other users to use Copilot Chat, the free web-based version, right? Because it's a free tool that is secure, that's in the web in the Edge browser. JTec, they can help you with regards to a security review, a data review. They can help you out making sure you're ready for rolling out AI. And in the meantime, these initial users of your soft launch, well, they're meeting up every week. They're deciding where it works really well and where it doesn't work really well. And once that month is done, you take those learnings, that education that they're giving you, and then you decide as a company what departments you're going to roll it out in full. And then, of course, you can talk to JTec about training for all of those users that you're rolling it out to. We can organize that for you, right? But I wouldn't have any concerns around the security aspect of it. Good question.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. Thank you very much, John.
Has anybody else got another question?
John, can I just ask?
Yes.
you've got the insight there, and you've given a massive amount to take on board.
Yeah.
But also, is there anything coming down the line we should know about? Any new features or
The features are added all the
updates?
time, and the problem is Microsoft are not really good at updating you. There are pages you can follow. There are certain people and maybe departments of Microsoft you can follow on LinkedIn and stuff like that, and they do kind of provide you with information, but it's very difficult. Like, for instance, the Copilot Studio I showed you there, right? When I created my agents initially as a demo, there was no actions field. There was no trigger field, right? These are new fields that were created in order to create more impressive, complex agents that will be triggered by something other than you prompting it. They weren't there a couple of months ago. So they were just added. I just opened it up one day and I was like, okay, well, that's new. I have to read up on that. When I first demoed it in Teams, I got asked, could it give me the summary in Spanish? I asked it and it said no. Annoyingly, it said no in Spanish, right? It was like, yo no puedo escribir. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I mean, you can tell me no in Spanish, but you can't actually write it. Now it does it perfectly in pretty much every language. I've tested it in numerous languages I can't even pronounce, and it was able to do it no problem at all. So that was really, really impressive. So there's always features being added to it. It's always being enhanced. Cross-application workloads is going to be able to be done as well over time. You used to only be able to maybe look up and clash 2 or 3 Word documents together. Now you can clash 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably in a year you'll be able to clash 100 without any problems. So again, it's always being enhanced, Jeremy. Thanks,
Brilliant.
guys. Gail, Maeve, appreciate that. Any other questions at all? Does anybody see maybe where they can find really good use cases in this? Or does anybody have any kind of concerns? Quick question, will recording be available at the meeting? Yes. I will share the deck with Jeremy. I'll share a recording of this with Jeremy, and he'll be able to share it with all of you guys, no problem at all.
And I'll also signpost some of that funding I mentioned at the start of the meeting as well. Okay. John,
All right.
Thanks so much for that. That was absolutely brilliant. You gave me a lot more to think about and a lot more to do because it just took so many notes there. I'm ashamed to say I took it on paper as well.
No problem at all. And just last thing there, Lynn has asked a question about, can it also give bullet points from a digital audio file from a meeting? Yes. Lynn, this meeting itself, if I didn't have transcript turned on, this meeting would still be saved in Stream. And now Stream has a Copilot button in it, if you've got Copilot, that allows you to generate a transcript based on the audio file of the meeting itself. So if I forgot to turn transcript on, because Copilot will only pull from the transcript, right? If the transcript's not there, Copilot is useless in the meeting. Now, thankfully, if I forgot to turn on the transcript, Stream now, and it's the new feature to Jeremy's point of what's new, Stream has a Copilot button that when I click on it, it will allow me to generate a transcript from the audio file, and then I can utilize Copilot against that transcript. So, excellent question. Excellent. Sorry, thank you. Anything else, Jeremy? Are you happy with that?
Absolutely delighted, John. Any further questions? I'll share them on with you as well, and we'll get back to people. All right.
Super.
Thank
I've
you
actually managed to finish this in the allotted time. I'm delighted with that.
Thanks for giving up your time. I know it's coming up to Easter, and we will have potentially some follow-ups to this as well, because a lot of people couldn't get on today that were very keen to get on. So, John, Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys, and thanks everybody else. Appreciate it.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.